Hey everyone, this is Hiroton Almighty 2011. Welcome back to more Let's Play The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. In the last episode, we made it back in time apparently to the Temple of Time to place down in the pedestal of time. Yeah, this is going to be a very redundant episode if we keep going on like this, huh? Kind of interesting that we're going into the pretty much the holding place of the Master Sword. This is the first time the series has ever done that because fun fact, in Ocarina of Time, this was originally going to be a full-fledged temple, and I believe this got scrapped. I might be getting this wrong, because I believe in Ocarina of Time, there were two temples that were scrapped. One of them was going to be the Temple of Light, where you would get the Triforce, and one would be the Temple of Ice, which turned into the Ice Cavern. In any case, I spoke over Midna there, but pretty much the gimmick for this temple, there are two statues blocking the main entrance to get the Fused Shadow, and we have to go find the other one. However, that's the thing for this dungeon. The statue that we're looking for is all the way at the top of the tower. Yes, you heard me right, tower. The Temple of Time is big. It's not the biggest dungeon in the game, that goes to the final dungeon, but it's pretty damn impressive. This place is 6 floors when you really think about it. And yeah, last episode, there's a lot of things that it's kind of weird how we're going back in time to before the Temple of Time was dilapidated and became the Sacred Grove, which a lot of people back when there was no official Zelda timeline thought that Twilight Princess might take place in the Hero Dies timeline, where because there's a Sacred Grove, like maybe this is a link to the past or whatever. That's not actually the case. The theory about this place is pretty much after Ocarina of Time, I guess, after, Link went back to being a kid and warned everyone about Ganondorf, and hold on, I gotta shut up because of Uku over here. Well, as soon as I break this pod and fall off like a dumbass, well, excuse me for a minute, I have to go back and actually speak to Uku. Again, like I said, all the episodes for now and the dungeons are post-commentary, so I apologize for that, but it's easier for me to talk this way. Not so fast. At last, this is it. This is where I've been trying to get to. The ancient technology of our people sleeps in this place. We've been searching all over, and now we're so close I can smell it. Once we find that thing, we can go back home at last. Oh, gracious, yes. Young man, we're so close, so please help us find what we're looking for. Yeah, so we get Uku one more time, and, fun fact, this is actually the last time we're going to be able to use her in the dungeon. Well, I tell a lie, technically. We do use her one more time, but this is the last time she can warp us out of the dungeon. So, yeah, if you still want to take advantage of that, this is your last chance. In any case, it's kind of interesting, and by the way, I believe those things are tiny gomas? Yeah, our first... Blue Rupee! Our first, encounter with, a Goma-type enemy. Yeah, they actually are all spiders in this game, as opposed to, Ocarina of Time, where they're like these weird scorpion things. And don't get me started on Hyrule Warriors with how weird Goma is in that. So, the Temple of Time. It actually has the most basic Zelda puzzles, like, putting stuff down on switches and everything, and, weight puzzles, kind of like the Temple of Gods in, the Tower of the Gods in, Wind Waker. But it's done so ingeniously, I can't even be upset about that, because yeah, I was kind of dreading doing this dungeon because, like I said, this dungeon is tall, but it's not that long. And by the way, this place is also crowded with Lizafos, and also it has a new type of Lizafo that we're going to come across. I believe the ones we come across are the Dynafols, which I was talking about earlier. But pretty much, oh yeah, and over there you can see it's also the introduction of Armos. The Armos, they ironically kind of look more cartoony than the Wind Waker iteration, but it's the same gist. You just have to get behind them and hit the switch, pretty much. It's kind of weird how, they die the same way they do in Wind Waker. It's not the same as Ocarina of Time, where you just have to reveal them and you can just hit them or blow them up. But, again, going back to what this place is, basically, after Link went back in time and told everyone about Ganondorf's evil schemes and whatnot, they moved the Temple of Time and put it in a different location, which, you know, I guess is near Kokiri Forest when you really think about it, because Faron Woods is supposed to be Kokiri Forest after all the Kokiris have passed on. But, kind of a stupid idea when you think about it, that, like, yeah, you moved the location, but you kind of made it obvious by making it a giant tower. And that's exactly the reason why there are monsters in here. But I gotta give Zant credit. How the hell did he go back in time and hide the mirror shard there? I was gonna say, like, that should cause some serious problems more than just, you know, the mirror transforming all the things inside the temple into terrible monsters, like, you know, having Lizafos and all that. But aside from that, you know, you think this would cause time paradoxes and all that, but, you know, we have Hyrule Warriors where apparently in the future of the child timeline, the Ganondorf of the future is split into 3 pieces that are sealed within the past and an alternate timeline. So, yeah, Zelda's very confusing when it comes to time travel. And you know, I honestly kind of like that about Zelda, how it's... I've never mentioned this before. My favorite type of setting for video games, honestly, is fantasy. Like, it's like the medieval settings and all that. Which is ironic because, you know, my favorite Final Fantasy games are the more futuristic ones like 7. But, you know, my favorite, you know, type is the medieval and all that. But it's hard for me to get into the classical ones. But I love Zelda for that reason, mostly just because, you know, it's a medieval setting and all that with the aesthetics of, you know, elves, fairies, and good versus evil, the light and darkness and all that. I stabbed him in the neck. Wow, that's brutal. There's a Poe in there, by the way, but we can't get that yet. We're going to come back to that in the next episode, pretty much, because there's no way to get into that area. But, pretty much, yeah, it's a fantasy setting with, like, some futuristic stuff in it, such as, you know, stuff like the claw shot, the spinner, the ability to time travel, causing alternate realities and all that. It's, you know, a really cool concept for, like, a medieval game to do, pretty much. And that's, like, why I love Zelda so much. People may hate the timeline. People may be, like, you know, they don't like seeing the games as, like, a continuing story. They just like to see them as their own individual stories, with the exceptions of the obvious sequels, like Majora's Mask or, the Great Sea Trilogy. Me, personally, I honestly get joy about seeing these games all connect, pretty much. Except Triforce Heroes. More on that later. Well, you know, maybe I can bring it up later just because this is a pretty long dungeon. This video, I believe, is going to be about like 30 minutes, and the second part a little bit longer. I keep getting hit on these, by the way, because I kind of forget that these things are on a timer, pretty much. Because one's going towards you and one's going against you, and I completely forgot the rhythm for it. But, yeah. So, in any case, it's not specifically said why... Wow, Link clipped through the wall. It's not specifically said why, you know, the place got dilapidated over time. I guess the main thing is, you know, just time ruined the area and all that. But, and in here, by the way, you're gonna see me waste time destroying these baby Gomas, because these enemies, honestly, they're really... I pressed the wrong button again, by the way. I still didn't get over that. These enemies are really freaking annoying because basically they run away from you and they're really fast, but the moment you turn your attention away, they attack you, so they're cowards, pretty much. So I'm going to be wasting my hours getting rid of them, so whenever I do this again in the part, I'm just going to cut away till I get rid of all of them. But, while I'm speaking, I guess, you know, the main thing is time got rid of, made the Temple of Time to Sacred Grove just because, you know, there was no hero for like 100 years until this Link and all that. And, you know, I guess that's kind of like the only explanation for it, because I don't remember any other explanation as to why the Temple of Time just became like that. But something I should point out, which I don't think, you know, now that I think about it, I don't know if I pointed out in the earlier episode of the LP just because my upload schedule was terrible, or if I pointed out at some point in the past. Basically, there was also a theory. Well, it's a theory called the Beta Forest, where in beta trailers of Twilight Princess, which I'll put up, you know, on the side there was footage of what was originally the Twilight Realm, where the Twilight Realm had a different aesthetic view, where instead of everything being, you know, sepia tone with the flying blocks and everything was black and white. Midna sported a somewhat different design and all that, and the shadow creatures took on a more hideous look instead of being kind of artistic looking. This was originally conceptualized in the Temple of Time area in the present, where the forest behind where you place the Master Sword, you may notice, now that we're in the Temple of Time, the Temple of Time section is behind where the Master Sword is in the past. So what happened to the Temple of Time in the present? That's what's speculated to be the Beta Forest, pretty much. That it was either a scrap dungeon or it was what was going to be in the original version of Twilight Princess, where you go into this lush forest and you would go into this lush forest pretty much. Whether it's not the Twilight or anything is not really known, but you would go inside this lush forest, and essentially you would be able to I really don't know, because that's all we really know about it. I don't want to say much just because the boss that we're about to fight, which I might as well spoil it now. It's Goma, because this is the first time we're seeing the Gomas in the dungeon, so of course we're gonna fight Goma here. This is the appearance of Armagoma, which is the most spider-like incarnation of it, because like I said, it's a scorpion in both Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker. In this, it's actually a tarantula, which, it's the only Goma in the series that's actually a spider, well, besides the 2D games. But Armagoma shows up in the beta trailer chasing Link through the beta forest, and this concept would later be used in Spirit Tracks when you're being chased in the inside of the I pressed the wrong button again. When you're being chased inside those caves, when you're in the train, pretty much, which I forget the names of those enemies, but that's for another time. In any case, pretty much, Armagoma also shows up in the E3 trailer for what Zelda on the Wii U would look like, and everyone mistook that as basically what Zelda Wii U was going to look like. And funny enough, people also mistook that as what Twilight Princess HD was going to look like, because like I said before in a previous part, I'm happy that Twilight Princess is getting an HD remake. So long as it has a remastered soundtrack, I'm fine. But yeah, I am a bit peeved also that it's not new models, it's just upgraded textures, which... Sorry, I had a burp. The game does look better, but, at the same time, it's like, you're kind of just making a GameCube game look pretty. It's not that Twilight Princess isn't pretty, it's just there are a lot of moments in Twilight Princess where, and, admittingly, the game does kind of look a bit muddy. So, I completely talked over this puzzle here. You basically just have to fire an arrow from all across the room to get through these doors. So, like I said, this dungeon has very, very basic Zelda puzzles, but the way they're implemented are actually really cool. And we're getting close to the introduction of the We're getting close to the introduction of Dino Force, which I may have pointed this out before that in Twilight Princess, even though you get the hint, oh yeah, actually here they are right now. Oh no, not yet. Sorry, that's just a regular Lizabos. In this room, the Dynafulls start showing up. You may remember earlier when I said the hidden skills, while they're cool, they're not really implemented that well into the game because enemies don't really, incorporate that. And ow. Okay, this thing right here, this fully armored thing that I'm pretty much, going up against, this thing is the Dynafulls. They have probably the smartest AI in the game where they're fully capable in hand-to-hand combat, and you have to be very tricky in order to get them off guard, because you saw that I used the Helm Splitter against them. These are the only enemies that the hidden skills are absolutely necessary for beating, because they have the best AI in the game, and I don't know if you noticed it before, but they were basically immune to the ending blow because they get up immediately. So, yeah, it's interesting that we actually came across an enemy that's can go against the hidden blow. Thing is, we're not going to fight, I think these are the only ones that we actually fight in the dungeon, and by the way, I'm not locked on here because I tried using the Moral Draw. These are also the only enemies that are immune to the Moral Draw. I pointed it out in a subtitle when we were in the previous dungeon that the Death Hammer, I think his name was, he's the only mini-boss that goes down one hit to the Moral Draw. This enemy is also immune to the Moral Draw, like I said before. Wow, his model was freaking out there. Did you see that? So, we hit the switch, or miss. I actually forgot that the reason why these circular floor tiles are on the ground is to let you know where to aim your arrow. That's pretty nice of the architecture, wasn't that? So, you know, going back on the topic of Hyrule Warriors, by the way, I'm hyped for Hyrule Warriors Legends. Honestly, Xenoblade X comes out in a few days, and I kind of feel bad that I'm not as hyped for it as I was back then, just because I guess the people that I talked to about it, you know, the former inner group I was part of, they're gone now. And by the way, I'm going to spend a little bit getting rid of these Gomas, so I will be right back.
Spiders! A giant legion of spiders!
Okay, we're back after the, you know, pest extermination, and we actually get a treasure chest from doing that too. So, like I said before, I'm not exactly hyped for Xenoblade X anymore, even though I am really looking forward to the game. Mostly just because the group that I used to talk to about it, they're gone now, and I really don't have anyone to talk to about Xenoblade anymore, especially because, yeah, from the looks of Xenoblade X, it's, you know, I don't know why that's there. From the looks of it, Xenoblade X is only sharing the Xenoblade name because it shares the same gameplay, and the Nappa and the Telethia are both there. And here's the scale puzzle, by the way. It's very similar to the one in Wind Waker, so if you know how to do that one, this one is absolutely no problem. But, yeah, I'm not really as hyped as I should be for the game, and I feel kind of bad about that. So, in any case, I'm actually going to cut here again. I'm sorry about that, because there's actually a time waster. Well, there's a time saver here. Normally, you have to come back to this room after you get the dungeon item, because the boss key and a Poe are right above us. However, if you manage to somehow make the scale way more than Link on this section, you can do this part of the dungeon early. So I'm basically doing a time saver here. So I'm gonna cut till I get more than 2 statues so I can get up to that Poe. So I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. You saw that I used the claw shot target pretty much to go over to this one section. Sorry for the cut before, but I basically fumbled around a bit because I actually didn't know how to get this early. Because normally what I do, like I said, you're supposed to come back here with the dungeon item, and that's how you get up there to go get that Poe and also get the dungeon key. So I didn't know you can do this part early, so this is actually a new discovery on my part as well. So yeah, going up here is a time saver because not only do you get a Poe, but you also get the dungeon key, like I said. In any case, so another thing too, Fire Emblem Fates got announced to have like an early release date that comes out in February instead of March like we all thought. Is it wrong? I'm kind of not hyped for that game either anymore. Just because it's like, I'm looking forward to it, but I don't know, just the people, besides my brother, the people I was looking forward to are gone. The people that, you know, I talked about the game with and everything are gone now, so I guess that's kind of the reason why I'm not hyped for it anymore, just because, yeah, again, I talked to my brother about it, and he's the one that's hyped about it the most, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I only have one person to speak to about it. What is in the treasure chest? Oh, just Red Rupee. Yeah, I keep forgetting what's inside these treasure chests, because, like, yeah, we're technically not supposed to be here yet, so I guess this is a time saver? I'm not sure. So, we're locked inside this room, but this puzzle over here is actually relatively easy. You're gonna notice that a lot, by the way, that there are points where I basically fumble up just because I lose control of Link simultaneously. And also, I try to kill this thing with arrows before realizing I'm an idiot. Let me just use the claw shot. It is totally possible to kill those things, which I forget their names, but it is totally possible to kill those things, but yeah, pretty much you have to, the easiest way to go about it is to use the claw shot. And wow, that thing just turned down a dime. You know, I kind of find it interesting that when the Armos are around, the enemy music doesn't play, so technically they don't count as enemies. I should also make notice, and again, I'll put up the video up now. In the beta version of Twilight Princess as well, there are 2 unknown enemies, well, unused enemies, excuse me, where one is a Goron Golem, where, I kid you not, it's literally a bunch of Gorons that huddle together and turn into this rock monster that comes after you. And I kind of see why it wasn't used, because it's kind of silly. And the other one, I don't know what it's supposed to be. I guess it's technically also a golem. It's an Armos golem, pretty much, where, as far as I know in the video, there's no way to defeat it. The only way that the guy in the video actually makes it stop moving is to use the ball and chain on it. But as far as I know, there's no way to actually kill it. So pretty much if you hate yourself, you can try to mod it into the game, but, you know, again, it'd be cool if Twilight Princess HD brings these things back, but knowing Wind Waker HD, the most they're going to do is just redo the soundtrack and make everything pretty and hopefully streamline the game. But in here we have the, the key. So, I forget what floor we're on, but we must be pretty close to the top by now, right? I say this, but I don't exactly know. In any case, that rant I had about Triforce Heroes, by the way, I guess now's a good time to bring it up. Oh god, Triforce Heroes. I'm not gonna lie, that is one of the games I was hyped for when they showed at E3, even though Nintendo's E3 presentation honestly was kind of a bust. Especially with freaking Metroid Federation Force, which, by the way, there was no trailer for that, funny enough, so it's kind of interesting that Nintendo's not acknowledging it. I'm still gonna get that game regardless, but, you know, in any case. Triforce Heroes. Yeah, I was really interested in the fact that, you know, ooh, I get to play with 3 people online on a grand adventure and all that, which is weird because, you know, normally it's 4 players, so why the emphasis on 3 players? But one, like I said before, after I got back from Florida, my internet group, well, I no longer speak to them anymore, and on top of that too, pretty much. Oh yeah, by the way, you have to go over there because guess what's inside that treasure chest? Whoa, I almost got hit by that. Yeah, so dumbass move number 1. If you didn't go in there, guess what you're not getting. So, what I was trying to say before, my internet group, I don't speak to them anymore, and on top of that too, when I finally did get the demo for the game, I found out you have to have 3 people, because I couldn't even play the demo just because I only had my brother with me, so there was no way to play the demo because also the game was coming out, like, you know, pretty much a week after, and I didn't know anyone else who had a 3DS who was able to visit me at the time. So, yeah, I literally could not even play the demo, which sucked. And when I finally did get the game, oh my god, it was a disappointment. I will give it credit for this. I love its soundtrack, its attention to detail when it comes to, like, the aesthetics of the game, like the way the world looks, the costumes and all that. And I really do love how, when you're playing with friends and everything, the other Links have, the different voices of young Link, like one will have the voice of Wind Waker, one will have the voice of Spirit Tracks, one will have the voice of, young Link. I really do love that attention to detail, but the story is absolute garbage. And honestly, I got into an argument with my brother that yeah, if the game's fun, the story shouldn't really matter. But in a Zelda game, even Four Swords Adventures and stuff had a story. At this day and age, not having a story in a Zelda game is essentially the same as basically the same as Paper Mario Sticker Star not having a story. Why would you do that? Like, it has a story, but it's absolute garbage. And I'll get on this tangent again when we, after this area, because we're actually up to the mini-boss here. But, jeez. Like, it's just so hard to say good things about that game. How it has fun gameplay, but everything else is trash. In any case, there's someone waiting for us here. Who could this be? This is pretty ominous, isn't it? So after being absent for so long, you know those things they advertise? You know these knights that they advertised on the box of Twilight Princess on the instruction manual? Yes, we're finally fighting it. This is the Dark Nuts. this is what they look like in this game, and my god, is this a cool iteration of them. Essentially, the way to beat these things is that you have to bait them into hitting you, which you notice they do things like the shield attack and all that. They hit like a truck, but they're pretty easy to avoid so long as you stay out of their relative range of fire. The thing is, because they hit like a truck, they have huge knockbacks, so that's one of the reasons why Link has such a hard time fighting these things. Essentially, what you're doing is every time you get an opening, you have to hit it so that you poke pieces of its armor off slowly, one by one. And these things, right now, we're only fighting one of them, so it's kind of interesting how this thing is treated like a mini-boss, which is a really nice introduction to the Dark Nuts. But now we're on to Phase 2. Phase 2, it throws a sword at you, and by the way, when we fight more of these later, spoiler, that thing can actually hit you. It's not just a cutscene. It's only happening for this one time. In this version, he's a little bit harder because he's faster and he can also poke through your shield. However, he's actually kind of easier to hit because all you have to do is just knock him off balance and then you can just keep hitting him. Any one of your hidden skills will do. I kind of cocked this up a bit, but if you're good enough, you can just do this phase in only 2 phases. And he's done. So, over here, we have the dungeon item we've been waiting for, and on top of that, too, is the statue we're looking for. So what is it? We get the Dominion Rod. People who played Hyrule Warriors, you know how awesome this weapon is? Yeah, this is where it comes from, and it's kinda helpful. So essentially, what you're doing with the Dominion Rod, as the description says, it brings machines and statues to life. Essentially, anything that has a hole in it, any statue that has a hole in it, rather, it comes to life and moves along with you, and you can also make it attack by using the Y button to use it as basically like an item. It moves in the same way that you do, so you can basically distance yourself and have it as a co-op partner, pretty much. And I love how the bell moves me back. But this is how we're getting it back. We have the magical teleporting bells that are moving the statue around. But that's all for this episode. We'll continue this in the next episode. See you guys then.